Welcome, everyone. I'm Brock Snyder. I'm the Associate Dean of the High School Academic Program, and this is our second Coffee Talk of 2019. We had our first one yesterday with high school drama and had our host Kelly Maxner from that program share with the audience here and those remotely. Today we have Dr. Brian Cole and Dr. David Winkleman from the School of Music, and that will be the focus of our Coffee Talk today. In addition, we are dedicating these early, we'll call them winter coffee talks or early spring semester, but it doesn't quite feel like spring. So I don't feel good saying that. We're dedicating these coffee talks not only to share information about programs, but to also answer questions about graduation and this winding down of the college admissions process as we're starting to enter that notification season, and they're well into the audition season, and we'll address questions related to that. In addition to those joining remotely, we have in the room with us Jennifer Snow White, ESO chair. We have Mitzi McNeil, who's our office administrative manager, who really keeps us straight here. We have Brian Cole, David Winkleman, and we have 5 parents with us.
Yay, parents.
Just to touch briefly on some main points about graduation, if people are just really antsy to know some basic details. Graduation is Saturday, May 18th, right? Starts at 10 o'clock in the Stevens Center. Tickets will become available. The ticket request forms will become available February 8th, and high school students do not need a ticket, but their guests and family need tickets, and they're allotted 8 tickets. Okay. Now, most often there are tickets available to those that need more, and there's a process for requesting those. Friday is the 17th would be graduation rehearsal, and that's mandatory for all our high school students. That starts at 11 o'clock, right after the senior breakfast, which is a student-only celebration. And then there is a parent reception that happens in the afternoon that Friday. I think it happens around 4 o'clock. I'm not really sure, but you'll get more information about that. The information I just shared with you about graduation came directly off the website, the MySA website. So it is up and running, and we'll make sure we get that link out to families as well. So I'm going to turn it over to our guests, our co-hosts from the School of Music.
Good morning, everyone in person and everyone in the virtual world. It's our great pleasure to be here with you talking about our favorite thing, which is your children, which is our high school students and the students of the School of Music. I'm the kind of the general topic and theme for this being graduation and all things wrapping up, coming to an end, and what's beyond that is one of my favorite things to talk about too, because that's why we're here, right? I mean, the reason we exist is for the students to enter a program and achieve that program and achieve the objectives laid out for them, achieve the things that they've been dreaming about, and it's not a final thing; it's a step. Our graduation here is a step into whatever's next, and all of those whatever's next are really interesting things. Whether it's going on to continue studying music or the arts, or whether it's going on to study something else that this whole experience has informed them for. So I love helping that happen. Not just as dean and an educator, but just I help people achieving their goals, and that's had a lot to do with why I'm in higher education and in education in the first place. So I always tell the students, when I do the orientation at the very beginning of each year, this is one of my 2 favorite days. Welcoming them all there and getting them started. But really, my favorite day is the last day and seeing them go. Which is not because they're going, it's because it worked, it's because the whole process worked. And definitely David and I are both on stage for the high school commencement, and it's not an overstatement. We love seeing those young people walk across the stage and shaking their hand. It's just an amazing feeling. I know it's an amazing feeling for them, for you, but it is for us too, because we've seen them on so many stages of the way, especially David, who has so much contact with students. So it's an exciting time of year, and even though it's in May, it's here. It's coming, and it'll be it'll be here before we know it. It's virtually tomorrow. So I'm, as we go through, I'm happy to answer any questions about this semester and preparing for that, about graduating, all of us, and as well as beyond. A lot of your kids are applying. They are either applying for programs in music or something else, but they're in that process, which is very important, not in terms of just getting to that next phase, but doing that, the application, the materials you create is so similar to what they will encounter when they're applying for jobs and when they're applying for anything. It's amazing the threads of what you learn in this process, how they apply to so many other stages, into the future. So it's a great learning experience in that way too. And any questions or if there's guidance you're looking for based on our experience, not just in that process, but for what's next of getting started up at whatever that university or program is, we're certainly happy to talk about and give advice from. To give you just a little snapshot of this semester too, of what's going on right now, as always, very busy semester, and the spring is always a little bit busier than the fall. Even though this last fall was a little unique, as I told you before, because of the first time mass, and we started the very beginning of the year with the largest project we'd ever done. But typically this is when all bills come due. All the projects start to come to fruition. Things that have been germinating in the fall, whether they're big opera productions, classes that arrive in some kind of project. The spring is always when those things start to materialize, especially as we get into March, as we get into April. Students that are doing recitals, big ensembles, all these things are happening. So it's an exciting time. It's a stressful time. We spend a lot of time carefully crafting the calendar for the year, and particularly this time of year, to try to make those things balanced as well as possible, so that as much as we can avoid it, those things don't begin to happen on top of each other, and that there's still time for reflection in terms of the students, and in between those deadlines and projects, and the time to do the work as well. Because when you submit requests for proposals for concerts and projects, everybody will request basically the same week in April, so they have as much time to do it. But we try to balance that out. So the first thing that's on my mind, because I'm going tomorrow, is I'm going to China tomorrow. This will be and I'm actually going with Dean Martin Farrell. And I wanted to mention it just because it's something we're working on that won't really materialize right now, but definitely for the future, for the coming years and beyond. We've been working very hard on developing much more substantial international partnerships, not just more substantial. We haven't had a lot of official ones in the School of Music for a long time. If you go back 15, 20 years, there were a lot of international programs in the summer with the School of Music, the International Music Project, things like that. There were tours. That's kind of dissipated, and there hasn't been a lot now. So we're developing. This is the second trip I've made to China, where we're working on partnerships with a network that's being developed through an organization called CENTA, which is a holding company promoting arts and culture and educational exchanges. There's already about 6 different partner institutions. I went to Singapore last November. I think it was November. It's all running together. I think I'm still jet lagged from that trip. And went specifically to visit a School of the Arts Singapore, which is the most aligned high school of the arts I've ever seen with us. Public, all high school, all arts integration. It's the only one I've ever seen that has that many similarities to us. So toured that school, had a really interesting discussions with them about potentially becoming sister schools, maybe some kind of collaboration, study abroad things that we already have in the summers. These might be other interesting destinations for that. Singapore would be a really easy one because it's a completely foreign culture, but everything's in English. Yeah. It's very easy. It just takes about 25 hours to get there. But equally with China, one of the things, we're visiting a lot of different universities, but I'm making a second visit now with Dean Farrell to one of the most prominent high schools in Beijing. It's called High School Number 35, which has more of a historical significance than anything. It's not, 1 through 35 or more. There's some date, I can't remember the story about it, but but it is one of the most prominent high schools that has an arts program. But they are very interested in us as UNCSA, and not just music, but the entire landscape, helping develop an arts curriculum along the format of how we do it, and putting that over the top of their high school, and kind of helping them design it, helping them train to do it, and being involved, which could be great for recruiting for us, but it also just forms a very solid connection to them, which very easily could make for interesting study abroad trips for a week or two in the summers, potentially during the years like that. The infrastructure that they have in these schools is very good for these kinds of things, in terms of lodging and food. It's an entire ecosystem. So we're also working on partnerships with an institution. We already signed one with the Robert Schumann Hochschule in Dusseldorf, Germany, and working on another in Austria, in Graz, Austria. So there's a lot of these things happening. They take a long time to materialize, but it's interesting to just let you know that they are happening, that these discussions are happening, because we're trying to develop more links to the world and to train artists on a global scale. And I mean from ninth grade all the way to graduate student, because I think it's crucial, whether you stay in the arts or whether you go into another industry, thinking globally is very, very important. Because from a business standpoint, from a creativity standpoint, to be focused only locally, is a liability in terms of the opportunities that you can have. Think locally, act globally. These kind of things, and so we want to make sure that our education also has that dynamic, and also is projecting the importance of these things and providing some opportunities, large and small, for our students here. So, like I said, this will take some years to develop and to really start to materialize, but we're already looking at some pilot activities that would happen. We are tentatively planning with them, and I hope to confirm this next week, to do our summer strings workshop that we usually do here in Winston-Salem in Beijing. And so it would be primarily for Chinese students, but open to students from the US that want to go. So that, if we're doing it this summer, will be confirmed within a week. And the benefit for US students, if they want to go, would be that the tuition essentially would be waived. So they would only be responsible for the flight and transportation, but the lodging, the food, the tuition would all be covered within this. So we'll be sending out more information about that. Our faculty will be going. It'd be Brooks Whitehouse, Ida Beeler will be going, Janet Orenstein, a few others will be. The goal is also to send our graduate string quartet that would be assistant professors with them, and possibly do some touring performances. So things like that are already in the works. It's not just large scale programs about, bringing people over for a semester, sending our students over there for a semester. Those are really complicated. But there are a lot of cultural experiences that can happen on a smaller scale. And there's a lot of interest from some of the teachers and institutes in China to send their teachers here to UNCSA for a week or two as well, and to do immersive workshops with students. That could happen in intensive arts as well as other times of the year. So I mention that because it's completely on my mind since I'm leaving tomorrow. But more, I feel, really interesting and exciting information to come on that. But coming up this semester, obviously, in terms of the school music productions, we have our 2 big opera productions with the Fletcher Institute. A lot of undergrads are also involved in that, not just in the orchestra, but in terms of undergraduate voice students that are in the chorus as well. Werther, that amazing work is going to mount the stage the very first week of February, I think 1st, 3rd, and 5th. And then Rodelinda, Handel's wonderful opera, will happen in the first part of April. We have really exciting residencies happening. The January 31st and 1st, 8th Blackbird, who is the most successful contemporary chamber ensemble in the world. It's a sextet that has they've won lots of Grammy Awards and other notoriety, and they've actually been so successful that their instrumentation, which is kind of non-standard, which is piano, cello, violin, clarinet, flute, and percussion, not something you would normally see, has become called the 8th Blackbird instrumentation, because they've created this whole market for themselves. They are going to be here for the 3rd time, the 3rd straight year, working with our students on the 31st and 1st. They're doing workshops in terms of they call them visioning. They do two sessions on that are successive in terms of helping students envision whether they have a chamber ensemble or their own kind of artistic project, envisioning what that would be and helping them go through the steps of not just envisioning something that they want to do, but how they would do it and kind of create an action plan for it, which is what they did. They were all conservatory students. They graduated and wanted to do this, and no one taught them how to do it. And they figured it out, and they are incredible artists and virtuosic players, but they're also really incredible people, really completely willing to share everything that they have done, have succeeded, everything that they've done that's been a failure, that they've learned from, and everything that they now do that they wish they had known in school. So, and really, that's kind of something that I'm looking for with all of our guest artists, people who can come in and not just share how to play the cello, or the clarinet, but that can really share their experience and give some insight to the good and the bad to our students about how they got where they are. And I think that's one of the most important learning experiences. So I'm really excited they're coming back. The Chamber Music Society of Lincoln Center will be back. So you might be familiar with these artists through Lincoln Center that have been coming here for 4 years. They have their second residency on February 6th. Great concert on that evening. So if you're in town, get your tickets now. That'll be Wu Han and David Finkley, artistic directors, doing a program from a trio to a quintet of works by Brahms, Dvorak, and Dohnanyi. If you can't come to that concert, and if you can't come to any of our other concerts, and I mentioned this specifically for those of you who are joining us on the web who potentially don't live here in the Piedmont Triad area, one thing I want to mention, which I'm really excited about, which we've been planning for over a year, and it's finally happening, or finally has happened. We have installed high-resolution, full streaming video cameras in Watson Hall. Some of you may have seen our first concert we streamed, which was back in December with a alumni artist concert with Becca Stevens and the Attacker Quartet. But we now have 3 high-definition cameras set up to stream all of our Watson Hall performances, which is really exciting. I also kind of see it as a little bit of a catch-up. Like, this is something that is happening. It's very important in terms of the music industry and in terms of us getting the word out about the great things that are happening here. So all of our official concert series performances in Watson Hall, meaning all the things, if you go to the UNCSA Performances website and see listed, guest artist recitals, faculty artist recitals, you name it, studio recitals, those will all be streamed. Some student recitals, if they want them to be streamed, will also be done. If they have it in Watson Hall. We don't have this capacity yet in Crawford Hall or Hood. Inevitably, we'd like to add those, invest in those systems as well. But we're really excited this is happening now in Watson Hall. So if you can't join that concert, if you're too far away, all you have to do is go to the School of Music Facebook page, and it's all done through Facebook Live. We do some of the concerts on Instagram Live too. So if you go to the UNCSA School of Music Facebook page and like it, press the like button, you will automatically always get a notification when we go live. So every time one of those times concerts, you'll get pinged. But we'll also be advertising certain concerts, specifically and reminding people that they'll be live streamed. And if you just go to the Facebook page on any given night when the concert happens, then you'll be able to see it. For example, this Saturday, Low and Lower, quote, America's favorite cello bass duo, our own Paul Sharp and Brooks Whitehouse, virtuosic players, comedians, to say the least, in terms of it's kind of like a cross between a virtuosic concert and PDQ Bach. They have a concert this Saturday that's almost selling out. So if you're locally, get your tickets. But if you can't, then you can also watch that on the live stream. So that's a really exciting development for us here that we've been talking about for a while. Yeah, so that's this semester. Then I should say, I mentioned I believe I mentioned when we got together in the fall, one of the other changes we've made this year that I foresee going forward to be how we run the orchestral program is we're using all guest conductors, and we're able to bring in some of the top conductors in the country to work with our students with the preparation of those concerts happening with me as conductor and also the faculty with sectionals. So we've got a really, really big conductor coming in March for that concert, which is Mr. Larry Ratcliffe, who is arguably in the country, people will say that the best collegiate conservatory orchestra that there is well, it's ours, of course. But no, but honestly, is the Shepherd School of Music in Rice University. It's known as one of the greatest. It's a fantastic private conservatory institution, one of the greatest orchestra programs at the college level that there is. And he has been the director of that program for a long time. So he has a big conducting career with professional orchestras, but he's had one of the most demonstrably successful orchestral training programs for many, many years. And he's going to be here doing that concert with our students, Brahms' Second Symphony, and the Firebird Suite, and also an overture by Berlioz, Beatrice and Benedict. Really exciting concert. I believe it's the 22nd of March. Yes, that's a Saturday. So I'm excited for our students, and we've been doing this all year. They've loved this opportunity to work with some of these really substantial leaders in the music industry, and the diversity that we've been able to, and the kinds of conductors that we've been able to bring in, not just in terms of style, but also in terms of social diversity. We've been able to bring in, we've had a really fantastic conductor from London, who's a woman, Karen Hendrickson, an incredible conductor that came and did our concert in November, Joseph Young, who is the head of the artistic director of the conducting program at Peabody Conservatory. Tremendous up-and-coming young African-American conductor. So the diversity and the kinds of conductors, the kinds of people that we can have our students work is made possible by this new system. And I'm really excited about that going forward. We've already got all the conductors lined up for next year. I'll be announcing that really soon. Really exciting. So that's coming on in March. And I think it's become not only a really excellent experience for our students, but also something that further differentiates what we do here compared to other schools. In terms of in North Carolina, you'll not find any other conservatory or school of music that has this really dynamic program in terms of its ensembles, using not just guest conductors, but really top conductors from around the country. So I think it fits very much in line with our approach, which is having a training program that's completely relevant and connected to the industry and really dynamic like that industry is. So I've been really happy with the results and looking forward to continuing that with the faculty and creating this kind of innovative environment for our students. So there's a little bit going on in our School of Music, but we're thrilled with the results we're seeing from our young artists and excited about what's coming. So I'm happy to stop talking there and take any questions, following up any of those things, definitely about the theme that we mentioned for today about graduation and what's next.
Do we have any questions from this group here?
Sure. So with regards to the step of what's next, many students, like you mentioned, we're looking at applications, and I guess going down that road a little bit for the international focus. There's many international schools that are on the list for college applications. Can you, I guess, maybe give us your thoughts on, is there anything to consider, to be concerned over with regards to the pros and the cons, I guess, of an international college experience, especially kind of considering the long term? If it's more than just a bachelor's degree, if there's an intent to have graduate work, is there are there any concerns to have a bachelor's degree from an international versus a U.S. institution? And is that different? Would be preferred to have that be a graduate experience? I mean, what would your thoughts be with regards to international conservatories?
I'm a huge fan of going and studying internationally. So my opinion is going to be colored by my feelings on that and my experience living abroad and working abroad with higher education. Stepping back, I think what's super important for not just all students, but all people, is to have that experience to go experience another culture and importantly, see your own culture through a different lens. I think we would all agree with that. That's a lens you can't really get on a vacation, but a lens you can get when you're in the same 2 and 3 months or a year or whatever, when you're around the same people, when you've established yourself, a fixture in a culture. So in terms of studying abroad, there are lots of possibilities. I think in general, yes, I think it's absolutely something to consider and something to definitely do regardless of when ends up making the most sense for the specific student. In terms of like, the heart of your question about is it advisable, depending on, like, for example, an undergraduate degree in Germany or Spain or the UK, if they're intending to come back and do graduate study or work elsewhere. I think it's easy to feel like maybe they would be at a disadvantage. It really depends, but that's not the case. It really depends on the institution. A lot of these, it's so common now that people are doing that. From really famous example like Rhodes Scholars and people going to do degrees in the UK at these prestigious universities or many other places. Those institutions are such quality that usually it just takes a certification, a credentialing of what they've done there. With, like, for example, if they go to an undergraduate degree. Well, here's an example. We have a student who graduated from high school who is currently at the Robert Schumann Hochschule in Dusseldorf doing, she's doing undergraduate degree there, right? She's doing her bachelor's degree, really talented violinist. And when she finishes that degree, if she wants to go into do a master's degree in the Conservative United States, she will be qualified to do it. What it will take is just, essentially her transcript that they will evaluate versus but she won't have a disadvantage to do it because it is an accredited institution in Germany, not in the United States, but those accreditation agencies are very good at looking at this. The key is really going to public universities in abroad, especially in Europe, because those have regulation. Much like we do here in the United States. For private institutions, it doesn't mean that it's a bad idea. Some of them are amazing. There are some private business schools and things like that in Spain that I got to work with. But the regulation system is different, so it's just a matter of looking at each specific institution. But it's very common now, and I wouldn't be worried. Based on an evaluation of where you're going, a really reputable place, I wouldn't be worried about any kind of setback in studying in the United States. And conversely, going to do a master's degree, things like that, the same way. There are huge advantages in many cases in going to study undergraduate degree in Europe if the student is ready for it, in terms of their maturity, in terms of their ability to just kind of absorb that, in that you will immerse and dominate a language and you'll be bilingual. This student in particular did not speak German before going and had to do crash course over the first year. But I can speak personally, like that. So my own experience, like, of being bilingual, language is power. So whether you go study abroad or not, like, dominating another language and being fluent is such an incredible thing for your own intellectual development, but also in terms of your marketability and your skill set. So studying abroad, there's no better way to become fluent in a language. There's no better way than just be immersed in a culture. Even if going and whole hog and studying and doing a degree abroad is not possible, if that's not possible, 100%, I think every student, and I would require it if I could, maybe I will eventually, has a study abroad experience. So whether that is a summer program, whether that is a program through the university you're going to where they spend a semester, that's ideal. Many colleges do this now in some partner institution, and they're very protected and rigid programs set up. It's very safe environments. Every one of your students should do that. So that would be just as almost equally valuable experience. I remember in terms of the credentialing, seeing a lot of that just from the Berkeley side when we were in Spain. We would have a lot of institutions from students from 40 different countries around the world applying to our institution, which was technically a U.S. institution in Spain. And we were constantly looking at undergraduate degrees from Peru or from Beijing or from countries in Africa and working that out. And we would always, if they had that certificate, if they had that degree from a certified institution, I can only remember one time where it didn't work out, and it was a really anomaly. So the world is set up to, the academic world globally is set up to evaluate this already. It's just that surprisingly, by percentages, students in the United States studying abroad are studying abroad much less than students from other countries. It's something that the rest of the world really understands and is becoming more important to academia in the United States. but I personally think it's really crucial. Long-winded answer.
Thank you.
Other questions?
We have a question remote. Should we wait until February to ask questions about graduation, caps and gowns, and any other fees owed? We can address that now. Caps and gowns. Traditionally at UNCSA, caps and gowns are optional. And every year we'll have some students that will have a cap and gown or some arrangement of a cap, maybe just the cap or maybe just the gown. Okay.
A cap and gown that they have made themselves?
It could be, it could be, it could be.
Yes.
There are, if, you know, and if you were to purchase a cap and gown, there is no specific pickle cap and gown, okay? You can order those. There's a link on the website for ordering caps and gowns and class rings and those types of things on the graduation link. Generally dressed for graduation has been, really anything from concert attire to, we heard someone yesterday say their Sunday's best. Appropriate.
I've also seen people come in full costume.
I was going to say, I think that it needs to be added because it's been on the Facebook page a bunch, like parents being very concerned about this, but it's a long tradition of the students being the ones who choose no cap and gown. And they do wackadoo, they're being artists. They're being their full selves. And you see that at graduation. And
it's wonderful.
yeah, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's one of the most unique graduations anyone will ever attend.
It's definitely the most.
I would say very few people wear cap and gown.
Yeah.
I remember when I came, because every institution that I've worked at has had a very traditional graduation.
Uh-huh.
And I remember David was telling me, like, well, students don't really wear cap and gown. I'm like, why not? We should totally do that. And then I went to our graduation, and it's so cool. And I saw very few cap and gowns, which is it's fine if somebody wants to wear it. But I saw a few caps and gowns more traditionally. I saw many that were altered to express a whole other level of creativity. And then I saw other things that I would have never imagined. There was one that was in like kind of a duck costume.
Great footwear.
Oh yeah.
Traditionally, some amazing footwear.
But it's emblematic of this institution. It's all about expression and creativity, and
parents need to be aware that if your kid is saying, I don't want to wear a cap and gown, that is not just your kid.
It's okay.
Yeah. That's just fine.
Yeah.
What about
No.
fees? Are there graduation fees?
There is no fee for graduation now. You may, or your student may get a notice that there's a hold on their account that will prevent them from walking. So those are hopefully taken care of ahead of graduation. The registrar's office is at graduation rehearsal with a list. And those students that still have fees at that point, yes, they're called out and they meet with the registrar and say, hey, we need to take care of this fee.
But there's a link on the website that you can go and check on it, your
Yeah,
very own
there is.
parent
That's
self.
Right. That's right.
To make sure your kid is up to date.
That's right. Good. I have another question. We're trying to schedule auditions for our daughter where school is not missed, but there are definitely some dates in February that will be affected. We'd like to know that she will not be penalized for missed days for college auditions and visits.
We do everything we can to accommodate college auditions for students because it's obviously very, very important. I would say that the most important thing is that the student is very proactive and in communication with the teacher as far in advance as possible. Even with a very big conflict, when somebody comes, 3-4 weeks in advance and says, I have a conflict with even this concert or something, with extreme things which we usually would not. If somebody handles it the right way, we do everything we can to accommodate that. But when somebody comes in 3-4 days before and says, like, I'm going to miss this dress rehearsal for an audition, my first question is, when did you know about this? And 9 times out of 10, it was a lot farther in advance. So the key is, whether it's a class, whether it's hopefully not, but something more significant like a performance, is just very clear and proactive communication as far in advance with the teacher specifically.
And then in terms of your academic courses, if you've seen our attendance policy, it is long to to accommodate for the nuances of the various conservatories and the uniqueness of our institution. We know our students, our seniors, they have an extra piece of the puzzle, which is this audition, right? And they're generally applying to more schools than the traditional high school student. So within the attendance policy, we have built in for those seniors, those second semester seniors, additional days before you reach that threshold that traditionally is 9, now is 12 for those seniors. We also allot 6 days for college auditions within that. Now, there will be more than those, and so that's important to keep our attendance in check, so we stay within that threshold of 12. We also really encourage, and you'll see verbiage in the attendance policy, that we miss no more than 2 consecutive days, okay? Now, in many cases, that's impossible, okay? The key is, as Dean Cole was saying, is communication with those teachers, following the planned absence protocol, which is the purple planned absence form, routing to our academic teachers, and then an accompanying email from a parent that outlines those dates.
The other thing I would add, and I say this because from our experience, because we also are one of those institutions scheduling lots of auditions for people applying here. In the unlikely or definitely unfortunate event that a student receives an audition date from one of these institutions that has a conflict with a big orchestra concert or an important performance, it's also important to reach back out to that institution and say, I have this, not just take it as final, but reach out to the institution and say, my son or daughter, this is the date I was assigned, but they are performing in an opera on that night. And they understand that, especially, they want to see students that are committed to what they're doing too. So it also is equally advisable to reach out to that institution and tell them that you have the conflict. And I would say it's very likely, most likely, they could accommodate in another way, whether it's another date. We even, as our institution, sometimes in other circumstances, will allow students to audition by video, things like that, under cases where it's just impossible to allocate a date. So definitely reach out to those institutions as well.
Questions from people here?
On a lighter note, how much earlier than normal, as in days, does one need to get here to get a parking space before graduation?
Well,
It's going to be an issue.
graduation is at the Stevens Center
It's
downtown. So don't park
And
here.
there's a paid deck right
plenty
next
of
to
parking,
it. Yeah, that you can do.
Is that where the Nutcracker was?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Exactly.
I retract my question.
It's a good question.
You know what, though? When you ask that, 5 other people are going to ask it on the PSO page, so thank you for asking.
If you
that.
went to a Nutcracker performance,
Yeah.
it'll feel very similar. It'd be a full house, that many people coming in. Getting into that deck is not hard. Getting out of it can take a while.
Yeah, just go to the bathroom before you leave the Stevens
Yeah.
But
Center.
there's the paid deck, the Cherry Street deck, and I've been parking on the Student Center, go right towards Marshall Street. Across the street from there is another deck,
Yeah.
and I always go in and park right on the first level. There's very few people there, and it takes.
Now everybody knows your secret,
But
Brian.
it takes exactly 30 seconds more to get from that deck to the student center. So, what I need is a commission from that parking deck.
That's
I need- That's what I need.
Up their business. Good.
Yes.
I have a question that I saw just on a general applying to college blog that I've been following. And I think maybe this is a question for specific art schools and then also liberal arts colleges. But talking about financial aid and the game, and I'm going to put that in air quotes, of different offers and negotiating offers. And this one parent was saying that like their child had already accepted one place, but that sort of their second tier schools right up until the deadline came in with these last minute bigger money offers.
Mhm.
And she was wondering, should we have not have accepted at school number 1 in hopes that school number 1 would have upped their offer? Any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I mean, and we're definitely involved in those kind of processes, trying to get students, like the top students that our faculty are trying to recruit,
Right,
recruiting against many other institutions competing for them.
exactly.
And scholarship, we'd love to give a full scholarship to every single student, but it's a balancing act with the funds we have versus what we can do with them. Students, no institution can require student. You correct me if I'm wrong here. By May 1st, right? May 1st deadline.
Correct.
No institution can require a student to commit before May 1st,
Unless they've applied early decision or.
Yes. unless it's a specific arrangement, and institutions do that. Where you early decision and early commit. But it's a lot like athletics, college athletics. They have National Signing Day. It's just our National Signing Day isn't televised by ESPN, but people,
E&E.
when you commit to something as an administrator, I would say that if somebody does commit to us, we put a lot of things in motion. Then in terms of if a really talented violinist commits to a big scholarship offer, then we start moving other resources, what we have for other things. And when somebody then drops out, then we have to scramble to maybe other offers or other people. You should do what's in the best interest of your student, obviously. And if something comes in and that's a better offer and you're allowed to do it, then do it. I would say the better thing to do would be, for example, even if that better offer comes in, that place that you first committed to, is that the best place to go? I would always evaluate this based on what is the place that's going to help me achieve my goals the best, the teacher that I'm going to be with, the environment, the kinds of things I'm going to have, the kind of experiences I'm going to have as a student there. A lot of times that better offer, you have to kind of look at it too, because what they may increase the scholarship by $10,000, but there's a whole other things that it ends up being the same amount of money out of pocket, in terms of what that scholarship covers and things like that. So it's really important to evaluate what those are. But even the reason I say that is, in the end, the financial difference may not be as big as you think. And what's more important is, where's the place to be?
Yeah.
So that's what I would say. And but I would at the same time, push institutions to give you as much money as you can. And I shouldn't, I say that you should
Yeah.
us as well. But education is expensive, especially if you're going out of state and things like that. The institution, if we want somebody, then, we really want to have them here, then we'll do everything we can to get them within our resources, and other institutions will do the same. So, when you get to like graduate school and doctoral programs and things like that, my advice to students gets even more extreme. Like undergraduate, I can see investing, good amounts of money in a bachelor's degree. But if when you get to doctoral programs and things like that, where more elite specialized programs, I advise students to absolutely go where they're going to pay you. You make sure that you have a place that, or help pay you, meaning your expenses as a student. You need to go someplace where you're going to have the right teacher and the right experience, obviously, but you don't want to put yourself in such a big hole in graduate programs that you can't then progress after that. The hole that you can't get out of. It's different for an undergraduate degree, though. You may have to invest in that, and it's worth investing in the right place. It's not that it's not worth investing in the graduate programs, but it's a little different. The stakes get a little higher in terms of you're closer and closer to the professional world, and you have to balance, what you're going to invest in that versus, the experience and what comes after. I have lots of friends that, finished master's and doctoral programs with pretty substantial amounts of loans, and they may have had an amazing experience, but they have compromised the next 20, 30, 40 years.
Right. They may never
know?
get out.
I know people who have finished degrees with, and this goes a lot towards which places you choose. I know a lot of people who have degrees from big major conservatories in the Northeast and who have gotten up to $100,000 in loans when they finish.
And as a working musician, that's a huge.
Yeah, even if you're a surgeon, that's
Right,
still
exactly.
that's still it's not the right course.
Yeah.
But so choosing the right place, a lot of times we get caught up in the idea like I need to go to this place because it's this specific
The
conservatory because of the name, this big private institution. And I know I'm selling our institution here, but I firmly believe it. Like you can get that same education or better at this place. you can do the exact same things at this place, and there's lots of other places. This was the best one. But really evaluating the experience, just like I was saying with undergraduate degrees, like go and visit, go and walk the steps of what it's going to be like. Talk to the students that are there and understand what will I really get from that experience and that teacher and that school, or what will I really get from this other place?
Mhm.
You're going to get a lot more debt,
Right.
but and I'm not necessarily saying that wouldn't be worth it. I'm just saying you have to really analyze if it would be. What would the difference be between to take on that kind of responsibility from what you'll get there versus some really amazing public institutions like ours?
I have to say, I'm so surprised by my own child trying to convince her to go spend a weekend. Just, be there, talk to the kids who are in the program and just be there. She thinks, well, a tour is enough. Like, no, actually, it's not. You're talking about your next 4 years.
But that's actually probably a point worth pursuing a little bit. In my experience, and y'all have really done a good job, certainly since of independence, but historically, many people of his age are less likely to hear advice from parental authorities than from others. And so I'm wondering, as you counsel folks, or do you counsel folks as they're thinking about where they're going, or where they want to go, about what are the questions to ask? What kind of time do you need to spend? And so are they pre-prepared for that from somebody other than us?
Absolutely. I definitely do a lot of that, and I imagine Dr. Winkleman does too, on an individual basis when students reach out for us. But it's an interesting idea. I'm kind of thinking, as you mentioned that, to maybe put together group sessions for people who are interested in. Well, the spring is one thing; they're already doing it now. They're applying it, but maybe in the fall of each semester for students, high school, college students that are graduating, as they prepare to make those applications, to decide where they're going to apply, because you have all these application fees, to figure out which places you're going to put that you're going to invest in terms of even just filling out the application. Because there are a lot of important things to think about, not just the things that necessarily first come to mind, the context of these things. So we can look at that.
I'll say too, that's an explicit part of the conversations on the academic side with Brock and Adrian, because they meet at the beginning of this year, and then they're going to have an exit meeting with each of the seniors too, and that's a piece of those conversations.
And our advice to students is really apply to where you want to go. We don't want to discourage students from applying to a certain school, but what we want to make sure they're thinking about is these things. Cost. We advise them to look at the actual courses they'll take, look at the faculty pages, and share with their parents, and to always have a balance, Sure, and there's the you have that back pocket school, right? And do you have that school that's safe, that for whatever reason you break a wrist, whatever may happen, that that you have a place that you'll be comfortable in the fall.
Yeah.
And maybe you stay there a year and you transfer, or maybe you end up in, this might have been a third choice school, but you get there and you say, this is not a bad place. And I think I'll say that's usually the case.
The idea of school selection, meaning like places that you would like to go, places you'd like to apply, is a really great thing. And I remember things that I've told students in the past, because I've had students that have come to me and said, or I'll ask them, so what's next? Where are you going to go to college? And they say, I want to go to the New England Conservatory. It's a great institution. I know lots of people that have worked there and currently work there. But my question is, okay, why? She's like, I've always wanted to go there. Well, why do you want to go there? And it's really kind of just this. It has an amazing history and it's an amazing place, but why specifically do you think you need to be there? And one thing I've advised that student and many others is, okay, step back. What do you want to be? And that could change too, obviously. That's a big question, but at that moment, what do they feel like they want to be? And I want to be X or Y. And I say, well, go and web search like people who are that, who you respect. Let's say it's the principal clarinet of the Philadelphia Orchestra, and his name is Ricardo Morales. He's an amazing Puerto Rican clarinetist. So go and hit for that person, and like every major clarinetist in the United States of orchestras, go in their website and on their bio and just see where they went to school. And probably 30% of them will be like the usual suspects, went to Juilliard, went to New England Conservatory. But you'll be shocked that there'll be a ton that, you know, it's only a bachelor's degree at some college you've never even heard of, right? Somewhere in the Midwest. I mean, it's amazing. Or, you know, maybe they did graduate study in one of those places, but their undergraduate degree was at maybe a state school that you have heard of, or so often someplace that you've never even heard of. And but they went there because that was for whatever reason. It could have been because of financial reasons, it could have been family reasons, it could most likely have just been a teacher there that they really wanted to be with. And at any one of these institutions, it's figuring out, is that a place where I can grow and where I can achieve my goals? Because where you go next has everything to do with just what you do there and what you take advantage of in that space that you've figured out for yourself. And there's the proof is you just look at all these industry leaders of people and you see what they did. And if you really want to dig deep, call that person and they're probably willing to talk to you, or email them and say, I noticed that you went to this place and you're the principal clarinetist of the Philadelphia Orchestra. So tell me why. I'm sure they would tell you, you know. Yeah, but it's just that it's important to not take as a given everything that you hear, because all the things that you see in the mail and on the web, it's marketing, you know. And there are institutions that have storied histories, and they have them for a very good reason. They're amazing places, but it's all marketing. And like any marketing, whether you're buying a car or whether you're choosing a school, you don't just want to take the ad. You want to dig deep and find out what features that car has, you know, and is that going to be the right car for you? It's the same kind of thing with an institution. So, and there are so many great places for students to go study music, and you just, if you don't take advantage of the opportunity to really look and see where those are and all these kind of methods I'm suggesting, you might be fine, but you may have missed out on an amazing opportunity.
I think that pretty much what I was really getting at was how to maximize time on campus.
Mhm.
When you go from audition.
Yeah.
You've got to count, and I'm looking at a problem we may have where you've got to count a travel day, a full audition day. How do you pack into that little amount of time the right questions? Because what you're going to get is the marketing. Oh, let's go on this tour, this grand building, this great building, this great building. And you know, and you got to get on the airplane and go home because you're flying to another audition the next morning.
Yep.
And so how do we, everybody prepare students to know what the dig deep questions are?
What to ask.
There.
I think it's important to know what to ask. I always suggest students to go talk to the current students too. Sometimes the institution will set that up, and sometimes they'll like choose to take students. But you can go, you know, a student of an instrument can go and find out what other students are at an instrument just with some careful web searching, and reach out to them and say, hey, you can even ask the prospective teacher at that school, would you mind putting me in touch with like a handful of your students, you know, from different levels? And they will, because they're interested in recruiting you. And then you can ask those students, so what's it really like to be there? And then that's where you find out all the real details. And we encourage, I mean, we have when we do auditions here, we have panels of, some of your children may have experienced this. We have panels of current students that talk to them. But then we say, you know, reach out to them afterwards, you know, come ask them, or they can put you in touch with other colleagues. We're very confident in this place, but we want students to talk to our current students. Because not just because we want them to say great things and have them come, we want them to know what the experience is here, because we don't want somebody to come here that isn't the right experience for them. We want students that are going to come here and succeed. And so understanding what the place is and what it has to offer is something we really want to happen in a very genuine way. And I think the best way is talking, one of the best ways, to the students and the faculty they're going to be with on a daily basis. And sometimes in terms of knowing the questions, questions will come up when you just ask that student, so what's it like to be here? And that may be the best way in terms of even knowing their questions, the things they will say that we won't even conceive of thinking of them right now, because they're really talking about the day-to-day experience.
Can I address that really quick? I would say also, maybe not on the audition weekend, but if you get acceptance, one of the best things that we did when we visited colleges prior to application was our son researched the faculty, picked a faculty member that he liked the best or was most attracted to, I guess is a better way to say, like, I think I might like to study with this person, and asked and met with them on every school visit. He had a faculty member that he went and he had like 15, 20 minutes, sometimes half an hour, but 15, 20 minutes of that faculty member's time. And he met with them and just got to talk with them. And that was actually very informative for him to know what it would be like to be working with this person he thought he would want to work with, because we liken this to the apprenticeship and the master. Like, it doesn't matter how the school needs to be accredited, but it kind of doesn't matter what school it is. That you need to find your master that you want to be the apprentice to, because this was the person who's going to, kind of rule your world for the next 4 years, And so you can get a real feel for the person, the department, and everything by having that meeting. And if you haven't had that from a visit prior to an application, the audition weekend may be too slammed for the faculty to be there. But if you get the acceptance, you can kind of go back and then feel it out to know if you really want to accept the admission acceptance.
Great advice.
Good advice. And then you have that, like I said, no institution can compel you to commit until that May 1st deadline. So the acceptances are coming in sometimes in March and definitely by April, the latest. So that's good. You do have that space. And if you have the means to do it, if you have the time to do it, then take advantage of that post-accept visit. That's a great advice.
I'm finding one of the harder places to get information are, so my child's in visual art and we're looking at conservatories, art schools, but from the liberal arts schools and knowing what their music program is like, knowing what their art program is like, because they're all like, oh yeah, it's great. Yeah. End of conversation. And you talk to just a random kid on the campus.
Yeah.
So if you have anything, I'm guessing asking lots of kids.
Yeah. It's asking lots of kids in those areas. And, when you talk to the admissions area, they want you to come, especially if it's post-accept.
Right.
To say, I'm not going to come unless I can speak to, I can't make a decision until I talk to a couple students, things like that. Please put me in touch. And they will. Sometimes they won't do it automatically, like it's a part of their process, but you can say, like, in order for me to I'm deciding between these 3 places. I really like your place, but I need to speak to this teacher and I need to speak to these students, and they'll accommodate it.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. I mean, the visit is, and doing that within the context of a visit is even better if possible. Speaking.
But also that takes me back to the asking your child why they're interested in that school.
Yeah.
So my child, amongst a whole bunch of art schools, is really interested in William and Mary. And when I sort of cornered her, okay, great school. Why are you interested? Because when we toured it, it came out of her mouth, wow, if I came here, I would be the campus weirdo. Because she's eccentric.
Yeah.
And when I asked her the why, it's because and she's not a music student. Her favorite rocker, electric guitarist is a graduate of William and Mary, and he's a poet. And I will, I'll agree with her that he is a poet, but that's not a reason to pick a school.
Well, it's a reason.
Yeah. It's a good reason. Yeah. Whether it's a good reason, I don't know.
I wanted to say to Jennifer's question several minutes ago, when you get those financial aid letters, we can help you interpret them. So you can send them to Brock and Adrian, or your student can take them in to that meeting, and they can help you read that and sort of figure out what's really in there, because it is confusing.
I piggybacking on that, Dr. Wingham and myself would also be willing at any time, if one of your children is weighing options between accepting an institution, we will know. Probably with many institutions, we'll know a lot about them, may have experience, may know people there. But at the very least, just in terms of looking at it and giving our opinion, just kind of an analysis of it, please reach out to us. Anybody here, we'd be happy to help in that. It's an important decision.
Although one thing that a student might feel a little intuitively uncomfortable about, if they either have chosen not to apply to School of Music, or maybe they have, but as a safety, they might feel a little awkward coming to me and saying, I don't really want to continue at School of the Arts, but help me figure out next steps. I would be honored and privileged to do that, because what I want is what's best for them. I don't care whether they come here or they go to the moon. If the moon is the right place for them, that's where.
It's harder to get a response though.
Takes longer.
So we have
Takes
another,
longer than light year.
we have a question related to financial aid. And before I ask it, just related to the financial aid letter, realize that in most cases, that can be a negotiable, okay? That's not a
Yeah.
final
Yeah.
statement, okay? I discovered when I came here 10 years ago that was greatly different from my traditional high school is that students are using their talent as a bargaining tool, okay? And I've seen it year after year, students get more money than was originally offered to them, okay? Ms. Palone will also be sending seniors some tips and to parents on interpreting those letters. Okay, so we can help with that. The question we have, if out-of-state conservatories offer still leaves a large amount of tuition to pay and our student ends up at a state college, are transfer students offered the same level of scholarship and offers at conservatories as students entering right out of high school, or are they at a disadvantage with offers?
It really depends on the school. I would say in a general response, if they want you, students have a certain, the schools have a certain amount of money every year that they can offer towards scholarships. If it's a state institution, it's probably a very fixed amount. If it is a private institution, usually it's what they call a discount rate, which is basically them agreeing to a certain percentage of tuition revenue that they will eat, that they won't count on. Yeah, and there's arguably more. You would think there's more flexibility with that. The private institution, but it's a whole other level of complexities. But it's essentially, whether it's private or public, they have this certain amount of money to play with. Whether they're most likely going to put it into new students, because they're then going to say, like, a new bachelor student, I now have this student for 4 years, in terms of sustainability for enrollment and things like that. But if somebody is a really talented transfer student, like meaning that the audition goes really well, you've established a relationship with that teacher already, that they've been recruiting you and they're really interested in you coming, then they're going to find a way. In general, it will take more of a personal relationship with that teacher to really pull that off, or something at the school, because it's kind of outside of the process. It's not that it's something you shouldn't do, but kind of think of transfers as something that's a little bit outside of the regular enrollment process. But if they want that child to come there, if they want that student, then it's kind of an equal footing. Like if we were evaluating right now a new college freshman versus a transfer sophomore, our first thought would be we're prioritizing new students because of the reasons I mentioned, just in terms of sustainable enrollment projections. But if the teacher comes and says, I have this really fantastic student, I really want this student, I would value this student equally or more than some of the other recruits I have, and we're gonna pay attention to it. So that's kind of the scenario. Hope that answers your question.
Anything else? Any other questions remotely or from? Well, we'll give people a chance remotely to ask a few more questions. I'm just going to touch on a few things that haven't come up, that did come up yesterday, and then we're getting calls about. As you learn, get information from your students about where they're attending or the offers that they get, acceptance offers, scholarship offers, please let us know. We do have a plan for collecting that data. Ms. Palone and I will have a senior exit meeting with all seniors beginning by late March after spring break. Give those offers time to come in. In February, we'll begin a monthly request, February, March, April, from students and parents to give us those updates about acceptances and skippers. That information is really, really helpful to us. You can imagine it's helpful for recruitment. It's also helpful for the students' future senior classes as they see where our students go. It gives them a good, oftentimes a jumping off point in terms of college exploration.
Do you want that in writing, like through an email?
Yes, that would be great. Yeah, and you don't have to wait for the email from us to ask for it. Please, as you get that information, send it to us and we'll be putting it into the right place, okay?
I'm glad you brought that up because I would not have any idea that you would have wanted that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, the final piece of information we want that we'll collect probably April, maybe sooner if a student knows, is where are you going to attend? Where do we send that final transcript? To get that final transcript request, the students have to have that exit interview with us. Okay, so we're capturing them. If we don't get it from you or from them earlier, we're going to capture them right then and get it before we let them request their final transcript.
On the end of year notes, when does the finals schedule get posted?
Traditionally, it gets posted, it's after spring break. The calendar, the academic calendar has the dates allotted to find, but
Yeah.
not the specific.
Yeah.
And of course, a number
Yeah.
of our seniors are in AP courses, and those exams take the place of
Their
our
final.
course exams.
So if, do they have to take the AP test?
They don't, but I will say for the second year in a row and going forward, we're paying the cost of the AP
Yeah.
exams. So we encourage all students to take them because it
Yeah.
is a sort of an endpoint in the course and gives us some helpful kind of, comparison data. And we're footing the bill. So we would appreciate it.
And
if
providing
everyone-
snacks.
and-
More important.
and PSO is providing snacks, actually, at the breaks for each of those exams.
So no reason to not take
That's
it.
right.
And those scores are really important to us as well. I mean, we don't do standardized testing, right? And so we use those scores again to highlight the gifts our students have in our program. So, and it's good practice for those students and to be in that environment, taking that. Whether they, many of them are, if you look at our AP average scores, they're pretty high, and many students, not so much at conservatories, but many students are being exempt from certain college credits that if they're going to a more traditional public university or college route because of those AP scores. Other questions?
Yeah, more?
The internet is silent.
Okay.
We don't mind the silence, but it's 11:07. We were scheduled to end at 11:15. So if there are no other questions.
Sorry. Final exam schedule went out about the first week of April
Okay.
last year. That's what I think about that.
Well, because at what point does the College Board determine when AP
Well-
exams are?
Oh, those are
I mean,
determined.
those are set. Okay.
We have those scheduled.
I can find out when they are on the College Board. That's good.
I mean, there's actually no reason that we can't do it sooner. It's just, in the list of things that we go through with the teachers. But if you need a piece of that information,
I'm
Sooner.
just curious for personal reasons.
sure.
Right, sure.
Well, if you want, maybe follow up with us after and we can.
Yeah,
There's a little, there's some balancing every year just because of numbers of students and sections and that kind of thing, but it also stays somewhat consistent. And so we get our statistics teacher who has a good eye for these sorts of things, and then us in the office sort of look over what it's going to be and just do a couple checks on numbers and things and put it out. So that's what's involved in generating that schedule. And we can do it earlier, but we might also be able to tell you something at 11:15.
yeah. And we try to
Not
get the
broadcast.
senior, the majority of those senior classes early on in the process. So seniors, right?
Yeah.
As early as possible. well, I think we'll wrap it up. If there are no more questions, thank you all very, very much for your participation.
Yeah.
And everybody out
Thanks.
there in the virtual world. you very much.
How many people did we have today?
7 to 9.
Great.
At
7 to
anyone-
9?
At anyone.
Vacillating. Okay.
How
Cool.
many seniors are there?
How many
Yeah.
Total?
Yeah.
How many senior music?
Oh, senior music?
students? Mhm.
I am sorry, I don't remember that number off the top of my head.
Just wondering how long graduation is.
Oh, well,
2 hours.
2 hours, yeah.
Oh, that,
Kids
yeah,
gonna
that I
walk
can
across
answer.
really early in the process.
It'll last.
130.
It'll last 2 hours no matter how many students it is. The graduations
Yeah.
just always last that long.
It's much better than college, which is 3 hours.
I remember when we started in Berkeley, Valencia, the first graduating ceremony, we had about 55 people go across. I remember thinking like, oh, this will be the quickest graduation ever. It still took an hour and 45 minutes. Like just,
They
just
just
happens.
do.
Yeah.
The graduation, parking, we talked about parking down there, but UNCSA police will block off that block of the Stevens
Uh-huh.
Center because there's no room to gather, of course, and so the families will flow out into the street and the graduates will flow out into the street and they're there for 30, 45 minutes till they take up the barricades.
It's very cool.
Is your ticket a
Oh,
general
nice.
admission ticket? So
Yes.
you just sit wherever, kind of like the campus night for the next.
Yes.
That was awesome, by the way. I just have to
Oh,
say.
good.
I got to go
That's
to
so
that
much
with
fun.
someone who works in the dance department.
It's pretty
and
fun. Campus
The
night.
spirit
Pretty fun.
in the theater is so fun.
Yeah.
You get a sense of graduation.
Oh, that was really.
It's like their Super Bowl.
It
It's like it's like an athletic event.
You
Aw.
take it in the spirit that's offered. You have a dancer up there doing a solo, people whooping,
Oh,
for
it's-
them. It's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Go to the regular one, you're kind of like, what they're doing is awesome.
People don't
You should
realize
share. It's so good.
Yeah, only in the regular performance, only the little kids who don't have that inhibition will do. Like my little nephew was sitting next to my son, and the Mouse King came out, and he yelled very loudly, "It's the Rat King!" and they were cheering, and everybody's like, "Shh." He's like, "Who's the Rat King? Why would I yell?" You know.
As it should be. Maybe we should plant 30 students per
There
performance.
you go. Yep.
There was a movie that did that, right? They put the little kids every other. What was that movie?
Oh,
There was a stodgy, like upper crust type people attending this performance,
Uh-huh.
and then they brought in all of the they brought in the children's home
Yeah.
orphans to
Uh-huh.
sit like every third or every fourth seat or
oh
something.
wow.
And all the people were like, oh, because the kids were like, oh,
Yeah.
watching.
Excitement.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
It is
just
so
concentrated
contagious.
all of
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. We should do that.
It was good.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
It was good. I'm thinking about the juxtaposition. I can't stop thinking about going back to what attire they wear at graduation. I graduated from a regular public high school, and there was always that teacher that was in charge of graduation, and it was, you will not walk if I don't inspect every mortarboard, and it has to be a certain way. I mean, girls had to have it a certain way.
This is not that.
Lengths of gowns,
Yeah.
even to the point where what you're wearing under had to meet
Wow.
approval,
That's right.
or you wouldn't walk. And I just like that could not be
Yeah,
more
no,
different
no.
than what my girl is going to.
No, in fact, if they were going to say anything here, it would be, you will not walk a certain way. You will dance and show your own
I
style.
love
And
it. I mean, it
yeah.
could be more different.
Well, the visual artist students, in my experience, the last 2 years were some of the most creative
oh yeah, oh yeah.
in terms of their attire. It's pretty
It's
impressive.
what they do.
It's pretty cool. It's nice to see you all.
Yeah.
Thank
Thanks.
you.